Hi everyone and welcome back. So today we're going to take a look at lesson 3.9. This is called Using the Percent Proportion and this can be found on page 250 in your textbook. Okay, go ahead and put your name up at the top please, your class hour and today's date. And let's take a look at what you're going to learn for today. So today we're going to use the percent proportion to solve problems. Use the percent proportion to solve problems. And we're also going to apply the percent proportion to real world problems. Apply the percent proportion to real world problems. Okay? So kind of like the previous part of the unit, what we're going to learn today, we're going to basically be doing the same thing. We're going to have a certain type of wording today, but the only difference is going to be that we're going to have different wording each day. So it's still going to be the same setup each time. You're still going to create proportions, cross, multiply, and divide. The difference is going to be like the wording on how to plug it all in. Okay, so not just going to give us numbers and that's it. We're going to have to start figuring out where everything goes. All right, so what exactly is the percent proportion? So the percent proportion tells us how to figure out how much of something is when it's out of something else. So for example, when you look at the first one, it says 12 is what percent of 32. So we can use this to either find what the percent of something is, we can figure out what the original number is, or we can figure out what the, which is called the part, or we can figure out what the whole is. Okay, so you can find either the part, the whole, or the percent using this proportion. All right, we use a little word, what I'm trying to think of here. Like a saying, I don't know how to say it, a little saying on how to memorize these. Okay, so it's is over of equals percent over 100. Is over of equals percent over 100. Okay, so what this means is whenever you find the word is in the problem, the word that goes with is or the number that goes with is what goes in the top part of the left fraction. The number that goes with the word of goes in the bottom part of the left fraction, and then the percent is always up in the top, and then the 100 is always the 100. That's the one constant. No matter what we're doing over the next couple lessons, the 100 will always be in that spot along with the percent. So it's always percent over 100. The is and the of are going to change depending on what we're working with. Okay, so let's take a look at the first one. It says 12 is what percent of 100? So we're going to break this off. 12 goes with the word is. It says what percent, and then of 32. All right, so since 12 is what the word is, that means 12 goes on top, just like that. Of, well, of is with 32, so 32 is going to go down here on the bottom. We're going to put our equal sign, and then the percent, it says what percent. So we're trying to find the percent. Since we're finding it, that's going to be our variable, which is x, and then over 100. And then from here, it's right back to the previous part of the unit, which is going to be to cross multiply and divide. All right, so for this one, we will have 32x equals, and then 12 times 100 is 1200. Okay, and how this always works is you're either going to have easy multiplication or you're going to have easy division. It's one or the other. It's never going to be both, unless it's just super easy numbers, but that doesn't happen too often. Okay, and then we're going to divide by 32 because that's our coefficient. And then go ahead and grab your calculator. If you haven't grabbed one yet, go ahead and pause and go grab one. And let's type that in. So it's 1200 divided by 32. And you should come up with x equals 37.5. All right, and in this case, because we found a percent, we do need to actually label. So this is 37.5%. This is the only time you have to label, okay? So let's make a little note here. Label with percent. All right, that's the only time you actually have to label. Excuse me. You only have to label. Okay, if it's any other number, it's just an arbitrary number. It doesn't mean anything. This one means the percent, so you do have to give it a name. All right? Okay, if you think you got it, go ahead and try the next 4 on your own. If not, let's try one more all together and then try the next 3. Okay, let's take a look at this one. It says 15 is what percent of 20? All right, so we have 15 is what percent of 20? Okay, so 15 is, so that goes on top. Remember, it's is over of. Is over of. So what number was with the word of? That was 20, so that goes here. Is over of equals percent over 100. So what's the percent? Well, it says what? So that's going to be our x again. So that's x over 100. Okay, from there we're going to get 20x equals 15 times 100. That made 1500. And then you should have divided that by 20. And that should have came out to 75, which means 75%. There we go. Okay, all right, let's take a look at letter B. It says 100 is what percent of 25? It says 100 is what percent, and then of 25. All right, so 100 is, so 100 would be way up here. Is over of is 25. And then what percent again? So that would be x over 100. Okay, so we're going to cross multiply, that's 25x. And then we have 100 times 100, which is going to be 10,000. And we're going to divide that by 25. And we should have came up with 400, which means 400%. There's your answer for that one. Okay, letter C. So it says what percent of 5 is 20 or is 12? So this one's written a little bit different. It says what percent of 5? Okay, now of can't go with percent. It has to go with a number. Okay, so of is with 5 this time. Okay, and then is 12. All right, and then how do I know 5 doesn't go with is? Because that means of would be by itself. Of can't go with percent because percent's the other label. Okay, percent, of, and is are your labels. So what has to go with the percent? Of has to go with 5, and is has to go with 12. 5 can't go with is because if so, then 12 doesn't have anything for it to belong to, and of wouldn't have anything to belong to. Okay, so that's where some kids still get confused about that. Okay, so kind of just look at it a couple times and figure out how it all pieces together. Okay, so it's is over of. Is this time is 12. Over of, that would be 5, equals percent, so it says what percent, so that's our x again, and then over 100. Okay, so that's going to be 5x, 1200, and then divide that by 5, and we should have came up with 240. And that's going to make 240%. Okay. All right, so that one threw you for a loop. Go ahead and pause and try 1D by yourself if you messed up on that one, and try this one again, all right? Because you probably messed up on C, you probably messed up on D as well. All right, so go ahead and do that if you need to. Otherwise, we'll continue on. Okay, so let's take a look at 1D then. So it says, what percent of 18 is 9? So again, what percent of has to go with 18? Okay, of can't go with percent because that's a different kind of label, and 18 can't go with is because 9 would be by itself, so it has to be with the 18. And then is has to go with the 9 then. Okay, so it's is over of. Is 9. Over of, that would be 18. And then what percent? And then over 100. Remember, the 100 is the one that's always the same no matter what. Okay, so we have 9/18 equals x over 100. We're going to cross multiply. That'll be an 18x equals 900. And then divide that by 18. And that should have came out to 50. Which is 50%. Okay, and that should have been an easy one. You're trying to think, if you got 9 out of 18 on a quiz, what was your score? You got 50%, right? Okay, so just kind of always think of it that way. So we're always basically trying to figure out what your test scores are if you want to think of it that way, okay? All right, so what's going to basically happen is the x is just going to keep moving around on us today. All right, so you're either going to find the percent, the of part, which is actually called the whole, or the is part, which is actually called the part. Okay, so we're going to find one of the three. All right, it just kind of keeps moving around. So this is how you find it with the percent. All right, so when you get to your homework, you might want to kind of section off your paper or however you want to do all the percent ones first, and then go through and do all of the other ones that are the of questions and those kinds of things. All right, so let's take a look. All right, it says, what number is 15.5% of 450? Okay, so it says, what number is 15.5%? So this time they actually gave us the percent, and they will have the percent sign just like that, so you know it has to go with that. Okay, now how do I know if it doesn't go with 15.5? Well, because otherwise the percent sign is just there by itself and it wouldn't make any sense, right? Okay, so that's not going to work. And then we have of 450. Okay, so again, of has to go with the 450 and not the 15.5 because it's labeled as percent. If it's a percent, it has to be the percent. Okay, so it says what number is 15.5% of 450? So again, our formula is over of equals percent over 100. So it says what number is. So this time is what's missing, so that's our x. Over of is with 450. Percent, this time we do have the percent, it's 15.5. And then over 100. Okay? All right, and then we're going to cross multiply these, so 100x. And then 450 times 15.5. So I said you either get easy multiplication or you get easy division. This time we're going to get easy division instead of multiplication. So we're going to take 450 times 15.5. So go ahead and type that in. And we should get 6,975. 6,975. All right, we're going to divide by 100. So you might be asking, well, how is this going to make easy division? Okay, well, remember, when you divide by 100, all you're basically doing is moving your decimal point. In this case, we're going to move to the left 2 times. So when I start behind the 5 and I move over 2 times, that's going to give us 69.75. Okay? So dividing by 100, remember, just means to move your decimal point over to the left 2 times. And that's it. All right, so again, like I said, you're just going to have x moving around. So sometimes you're going to find the percent, sometimes you're going to find the part, which is what we just found, which is when we were finding is, and then sometimes you're going to have it whenever you're missing the word of. All right, so let's take a look at the last 3 down here. All right, go ahead and pause it if you need to. Otherwise, you can follow with me through one more if you need to, and then you can try it on your own after that. All right, so let's take a look at this one. 2a says, what number is 11.4% of 330? So again, what number is 11.4% of 330? Is over of. Is x. Of is 330. Percent, so that's 11.4. And then over 100. Okay, we're going to cross multiply. So again, we have difficult multiplication. We know 100 to x, obviously. So 330 times 11.4, that's going to come out to 3,762. 3,762. Okay, we're going to divide by 100. Again, that means to move back 2 places, so that's 37.62. That's it. Okay. Now, I forgot to mention this in the last one. Notice we aren't labeling this time. That's because we're finding numbers. Okay, we're not finding an actual percent. All right, the only time you have to label is with the percent whenever you're finding that one. Okay, let's try letter B. It says find 10.5% of 30. So this one's written a lot differently. It says find. Find doesn't tell us anything, so let's move on to the next part. It says 10.5%. And then we have of 30. All right, so again, what are we actually missing? We're missing the is part, right? The part. Okay, so in this case, we will have x over and then 30 equals and then 10.5 over 100. Okay, that's going to give us 100x. And then we're going to take 30 times 10.5. That's going to give us 315. Divide that by 100. Of course, it means to move back 2 places, so that's just going to be 3.15. 3.15. All right, so if you got confused on B, go ahead and pause it. Try letter C again by yourself, okay? And then letter D matches up with letter A, so they're just kind of flip-flopped. All right, so go ahead and try those last two if you haven't already done so. Okay, let's take a look at letter C. It says find 15.3% of 425. So all we know is 15.3%, and then we have of 425. All right, so we're finding our is. So x over and then of, which is 425, equals percent. That was 15.3 over 100. Okay, cross multiply, so that's 100x equals, and then 425 times 15.3, that came out to 6,502.5. 6,502.5. So that's 100x. Or 100, I meant, sorry, not 100x. Okay, so x equals, okay, we gotta move back 2 places, so this is gonna be 65.025. 65.025. There it is. All right. So let me jump back for just a second here. So in the last one, I was telling you you basically be like finding your percent for a quiz. Okay, this time it's I gave you the percent. You would find the original number. Okay, so how many did you actually get correct on the test is what we're looking for. So if there were 330 points on a test, like on number 2A here, if there were 330 points on the test and you only got 11.4% correct, then what number did you get correct? Well, that meant you got 37.62. Now, obviously, you can't have 0.62 of a problem, but you know what I mean, okay? So that's what we're fighting right now is you're fighting which part you got correct, all right? Letter D then. So we have what number is 63.4% of 12? So what number is 63.4% and then of 12? So in this case, we will have is over of. It says what number is. So that's our x. Is over of, so that would be 12 equals, and then percent, so that's 63.4, and then over 100. All right, we'll have 100x. And then 63.4 times 12, that makes 760.8. We're going to divide that by 100. Sorry, that's a 1 there. 100. Okay. And that means move back 2 places, so it'll be 7.608. There we go. 7.608. Okay, so we practiced finding the percent, which was the first example. In example 2, I taught you how to find what part of the questions you got correct. Okay, now I'm going to teach you how to find the total number of problems. Okay, so let's go ahead and turn the page. All right, so example 3 says 78 is 60% of what number? So let's do our underlining here. So we have 78 is. Okay, again, it has to go with is because 60 has to go with the percent sign. Okay, when it's a percent, it has to obviously be the percent. And then it says of what number? Okay, so for this one, it's 78 is. So this time we do know the part. Okay, so that means you got 78 correct. Okay, it says of what? So we're trying to figure out how many questions were on the test, and you got a 60% on it. So that's going to be 60 over 100. Okay, does it make more sense, hopefully, with what we're doing now? So the x is just going to keep moving around. So either you're finding what percent you got like on a test or homework or whatever it is, you're either going to figure out how many questions you got correct, or you're going to find how many were on the test. Okay, so for this one, we're going to cross multiply, so that's 60x. 78 times 100 is 7,800. Okay, so we had easy multiplication, which means our division is going to be difficult now. Okay, so you'll grab your calculator then. Let's type that in. 7,800 divided by 60. 7,800 divided by 60. And you should have came out to 130. Okay, so what this means is, if you got a 60% on your test, that means you got a 78 out of 130 questions, or 130 points. Okay, whatever it is. All right, so that's what that means. this is one of the things that I really do actually use a lot. This whole chapter I use a lot of. Obviously, I'm a teacher, but nonetheless, even if I'm trying to figure out a percent of something at home or something like that, I still use this, okay, because I teach it, so I remember what the setup is. There are other ways of finding this, non-algebraically, but um, it's just if you know how to do it, it's really quick and easy. So I actually do still use this quite a bit. Okay, let's go ahead and try the next four. I think you'll be okay. Just take your time, do your underlining through here. If you need to, try one with me one more time and then keep going, that's fine. It looks like the two questions are reversed again. So like A matches D and B matches C. So if you're still not sure, maybe try A and B with me and then pause and then try C and D, which will help you with those other ones. Okay, so let's take a look here. Let me scroll down just a little bit. There we go. Got lots of room now. Okay. Letter A says 30% of what number is 63? So 30%, it says of what number is 63? Okay, so it's is over of equals percent over 100. Is over of equals percent over 100. So is 63. Over of, it doesn't say what it is, so that's our x, 30%, and then over 100. Okay, so let's give us 30x equals 6,300. Divide that by 30. Okay, and then we'll divide that out. So let's grab our calculator, 6,300 divided by 30, and that came out to 210. All right, so again, what this means is if you get a 30% on a test, or whatever it is you're taking, that means you had 63 questions out of 210, or that's at least one. If you got 63 questions correct, that means there were 210 possible. Okay, letter B. 3,000 is 60% of what number? So it's 3,000 is 60%. Then of what? All right, so is over of equals percent over 100. Is, so that's 3,000. Of what? 60%. All right, so in this case we'll have 60x. And then we're going to add the two zeros on, so that will make it 300,000. Divide that by 60. And then that comes out to 5,000. All right, so that means if you got 3,000 points on your project or whatever, it means obviously have to be something astronomical. Okay, but if you got 3,000 points and you made a 60%, that means there were 5,000 points possible. Okay, which if you take off all the zeros, okay, that'd be 3/5. And we know 3/5 means 60%, right? 3 out of 5. Okay, so letter C. Okay, so if you haven't been able to get A and B, go ahead and pause it and try C and D on your own then. Okay, and let's take a look at letter C if you are ready to go. It says 45 is 3% of what number? So 45 is 3%, and then of what? Okay, so is over of equals percent over 100. Is 45. Over of, which is x, equals percent over 100. Okay, this actually is going to be fairly easy math this time. So 3x equals 4,500. Divide that by 3. And that's going to give us 1,500. Okay, so again, what does this mean? It means that if there were 45 questions, you only got 3%. That means that there were 1,500 questions. Okay, and then letter D, 18% of what number is 126? So 18% of what is 126? So that's 126 over of equals percent over 100. Okay, so that's 18x, and that's going to give us 12,600. We're going to divide that by 18, and we should come out to 700. Okay. So for this one, that means we would have 700 questions possible, and you only got 126, which would give you an 18%. All right, let's take some word examples in here. All right, example 4. So we're heading into the baseball season quickly. Okay, there's probably about 8 or 10 weeks right now for people start to report. So we're actually getting fairly close. It says the table shows the batting statistics for one season for Derek Jeter of the New York Yankees. If he had 639 at bats, what percent of his at bats were singles? Round to the nearest tenth. Okay, so for this one, I want you to think in terms of part and whole. Okay, remember, part means what part of the test you actually got over the whole. So how many whole questions were there? Okay, so what part of the questions over, how many whole questions were there? All right, so this time we're looking at singles. Okay, and there was 151. Okay, so let's think about it. It says he had 639 at bats. So do you think that means that would be the part or the whole if there's 639 at bats? And we also have to look at 151. So is 151 going to be the part or the whole, and is 639 going to be the part or the whole? Okay, well, let's think about it. If we're trying to figure out if he had a total of 639 at bats, that would be the same as having a total number of questions, right? So that would be the whole, and that means 151 would be part. So out of all of those at bats, he got 151 singles. So it would be like getting 151 questions right on a 639-point test. Okay, so we're going to do part over whole, so that's going to be 151 over 639 equals, and then we're trying to find the percent, so that's going to be x over 100. Okay, so that's going to be 639x equals, and then that'll make it 15,100. We're going to divide by 639. And looks like we're up to round off on this one, so let me change it to approximately. Okay, it's going to be approximately 23 point, let's see, we have to round to nearest tenth, so it's one decimal place, so 23.6. All right. And again, we did find an actual percent, so we have to label. So this is 23.6%. And then let's see. Let's go ahead and put it in words, word singles. So 23.6% at bats were singles. We'll go ahead and write out the full thing. There we go. Okay, so when you get to the word problems, just think, are we finding part or whole? Meaning part is what part of the questions did I get correct versus did I get the whole thing correct? All right, and so on. And the percent obviously is the percent. That's no big deal. Okay, let's take a look at 4A and 4B. Okay, 4A says, to the nearest tenth, what percent of Derek Jeter's at-bats were strikeouts? Okay, well, right here, it says that strikeouts were 100. So strikeouts would be part of the thing, so let's do A right here. So that would be part, which is 100, over the whole, and there were 639 total at-bats, equals, then we're finding that percent again, so that's x over 100. So that would be 639x over, and then that's going to make it 10,000. We're going to divide by 639. And it's a percent anyway, so instead of running off the bottom there, I'll just rewrite the actual percent. So it looks like we have 15.6%. 15.6%. Okay, let's take a look at letter B. Financial literacy. The number of mutual funds that increased in value during the third quarter of the fiscal year was 15. If this is 60% of the total number of mutual funds offered, how many mutual funds were offered? Okay, so it says that they increased the value and the third quarter, and there was 15 that actually increased there, and then 60% that number was 60% of the total number. So if we're trying to find the total number, that means we're trying to find how many were possible, like on a test. So we're trying to find the whole this time. So 15 is our part, x is the whole, and then that would be 60% over 100. So that would be 60x equals 1500. Divide that by 60. I'm going to run out of room again, so I'm just going to jump over here to the side. And that comes out to 25. All right, so 25 mutual funds. And there we go. All right. So again, you're going to either look for the percent, so what percent you actually got on a test, or you're going to look for how many you got correct out of the total number, or you're going to find how many were possible on the test. Okay. And then we get to these other ones. Think part and whole. Part, of course, means which part of the question was correct versus what was the whole amount possible, and so on. All right. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. I think you'll be okay. Thanks for watching, and give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you next time. And don't forget to subscribe. Thanks, bye.